Good morning, welcome into my campsite. On this week's episode of Cody Builds, we're going to be taking a little tour of my DIY built Teardrop camper. My wife and I and the dog decided to get out of town this weekend and go on a little camping trip, so I thought it might be a good weekend to show you all this camper that I built a few years back. Let's go take a look. The frame of this camper started life as a 1992 Starcraft Pop-up camper. I had that camper for maybe 10 years and I only used it a handful of times. It was really rough shape. The top was coming off of it. And my wife and I were at a point where we didn't really want to be tent camping anymore. It was such a pain to load all the gear up, set everything up when you get there, break everything down, bring it home, unfold all of it to dry everything out again, get everything situated. We just didn't feel like we had enough time and we wanted something that we could just get in and go. And so that's where the idea of a camper was born. The week before we went to our wedding, which we got married out in Colorado, the week before we got married, we took a hiking trip into Rocky Mountain National Park. And while we were camping there, my wife saw a little teardrop trailer. It was from a company called Timberleaf, and we talked with the people and they were super nice. And they couldn't stop raving about their little camper. And they were just raving about the quality and how great of a camper it was. And if you buy a camper like that, you're buying one for life. Well, that got the wheels turning, and so we did some pricing, and much to our surprise, the smaller the camper gets does not necessarily mean the smaller the price tag gets. When you really think about it, you're still jamming a lot of the amenities into a much smaller space. So, you know, you still have an electrical system, you still have, some of them have heaters, ours doesn't, but you've got the batteries that go with it, the lights, the windows, the doors, all these things that are in a regular full-size camper are also in these little trailers. And so while they may cost slightly less money, because the actual skeleton and the materials that go into them are less, the amenities are not, and those are the things that really drive the price of these campers up. So we started looking at building our own. It was an idea I had. I'd seen a few DIY campers, and I was looking for a challenge at the time. This was 2020 when we finally pulled the trigger on building. So I set about, my wife and I, building this camper. And what we did was we got a dumpster. We brought my old pop-up back home. I had it stored out in a field. And we tore that thing down to the bare frame, threw everything we didn't need in the dumpster, and we kept a good amount of things, as you'll see, I'll point out as we go through the camper. One being the frame, and I set about modifying the frame to fit this specific this specific shell that we designed. So the frame previously was about 1.5 feet wider, so I cut off some side rails. We actually ended up going with the same length. I didn't have to do anything to the length of the trailer, but I just went about reinforcing the trailer in a few spots and making a few modifications. Once all that was done, it was time for building the shell. And the shell of this trailer is, the walls are a sandwich construction. So the interior wall is 3/4 inch plywood. And that has a number of pockets and things cut out for it for insulation. So it's really like a skeleton on the inside. The inside layer is 1/8 inch Baltic birch, and the outside is 1/4 inch. I believe I went with Baltic birch. Actually, I don't think I didn't do Baltic birch, but I did a higher quality outer plywood. The important thing when you're building these is to use high quality materials. I tried starting the walls with a lower quality 3/4 inch plywood, and it was a nightmare because the internal layers have a lot of voids and knots in them, and it just made joinery a real task. So we scrapped that. We went with some higher quality plywood, and I'm really happy with the results. So the trailer is 5 by 11.5. It's about 5 by 12, right to the peak, all the way to the back. But really from about here, where the front of the bed is, it's about 11.5 feet. I call it a 5 by 12. It is 5 foot wide, so the interior of this has a queen size bed. And typically this is about 2 foot longer than you'll find most teardrop trailers. This is the cab of the trailer here. So we've got 3 overhead cabinets here. We've got this little cubby, was originally supposed to be for the dog, but the dog, if you're a dog owner, you know, the dog sleeps right here, right in the middle of us. But she's got her little cubby down there. We've got some storage under her bed that holds our electric blanket. We do have a little outlet down there under the fuse panel. That's the fuse panel there. That allows us to plug the blanket in down there, electric blanket. On cold nights we do that and it stays plenty warm in here. We've been in this camper down to about 34 degrees without issues, with no heater, just the electric blanket. Now I've got a 3-way switch panel here, which allows us to turn the cabin lights on and off from either side. There's an exterior light on each side, and then the accent lights can be turned on and off from either side. So that's a nice little touch, is you don't have to ask someone to turn the lights on or off. You can do it from your own side. These are reading lights here. Got these off of Amazon. They're just touch lights and they dim as well. And they've got little chargers built into them in the bottom for our cell phones. So that's a nice little touch. I did router out these raceways just to kind of clean up the look here. That hides the wires behind here and they feed down into the headboard. I matched them all to the size of the light, so it's all kind of a smooth transition there. Clean, nice clean look. Most people don't even notice them. This is my wife's side of the bed. We've got a Max Air fan, and this is a 10-speed fan, the quiet fan right up there. I leave the control on her side, as she's usually one that dictates the temperature in the cabin, whether she's warm or cold. We have a nice little headboard up here. Let me turn these LEDs off because they're look like they're flickering a bit on screen here. So we've got this nice little headboard storage here. We've got a little decoration, our little teardrop decoration there. And this just lifts up. And we don't use this as frequently, but we store some odds and ends down in there, little extra stuff. Games and tools and fuses and odds and ends. We used to store our electric blanket up there, but now we do store it down at the foot of the bed. We've got these little extra trays for your keys and your wallet. At the end of the night, headlamps, those kinds of things. Now the interior of this cabin is all Baltic birch. You can see the nice grain pattern, and my wife wanted the natural grain, so this doesn't have any stain on it. It's just sanded and sealed. And the cabinet faces are all grain matched. It's a little hard to see in the camera, but I did grain match all of the cabinet faces. And we went with this nice kind of modern look. That's what my wife wanted. She didn't want any door handles or anything. So what I did was I actually routed out a little finger hold there. And each of these has just a little arm on the side there to hold up the cabinet when we're getting stuff in and out, because before we didn't have anything there. They're just hinged, and that was kind of a pain because they were just flopping around. And so this is a much better solution, and those just close shut. So we've got a his and hers cabinet, so we each put our clothes in there. My wife likes to put hers. She kind of organizes all of her stuff into a bag, so when she gets home she can just grab the bag and pull it out. I'm not that organized. The far side there, this is actually a through cabinet. So we open this up. We keep a lot of our towels, our extra blankets, anything we're going to want inside and maybe outside. Our toiletries get stuck in here because that door there is on the exterior of the trailer and it's a pass-through. So, you know, we don't really snack in bed, but if you're one that did, you could keep some snacks and things in here, but we don't really do that. So yeah, so we've got this nice kind of clean modern look in here, which is what my wife was going for. We salvaged a lot of this type of hardware, the curtain hangers and things like that, all of this hardware out of the old pop-up trailer. And then my wife made all of these curtains for the windows and for the skylight here. Now the funny thing is, my wife made the curtains, but she did not make these pillows. Actually, her aunt made us these pillows for Christmas, and her aunt had no idea that we had the matching curtains in the camper. She just randomly picked this, obviously because it has teardrops on it, and she knew we had a teardrop camper because she made them specifically for this camper. So just a complete coincidence that our accent pillows now match our curtains, which is pretty funny, but a really neat little thing for the trailer. As far as the curtains go, we struggled a little bit. We initially had some stick-on Velcro to hold the cabinets in place. I didn't want to drill holes in the door, so we were really debating on what to do there. And that just over time, it would get so hot in the Midwest that it would melt the adhesive and these would fall. So what I did was I turned these out of brass on my lathe. I just made these little buttons out of brass, and we drilled into just this window frame and screwed those in. And then my wife made little buttonholes in the curtains there, and those just sit over the buttonholes, and she made some down at the bottom here as well. And then these button up like they are on that side as well. So when you have the window up, she made them half length because the window's open from the bottom, and when the fan's on, that's where it draws air in. So when it's warm, most of the air circulation comes in through and comes right across kind of your chest and your face there, which is nice in the summer when it's really hot. We've been in this trailer in 90-degree weather without AC, and it's been pretty comfortable so far. So the upper cabinet here peeks right into the cab there. So anything like our toiletries especially, you know, if you're brushing your teeth, but in the morning you want to put deodorant on or something, you want to do that in the camper. We've got our toiletries up there, nice little pass through. So this area down here is storage / our electronics cabinet. I wanted all the electronics and wiring in one cabinet, just for ease of troubleshooting and ease of storage. I wanted all of it right here. So we've got Renogy charge controller for our solar panel on the roof. This is also a DC to DC charger, so while we're driving, we can be topping off the battery here. We've got the master fuses and the breakers here, a cutoff switch, and then we have our converter box in here that converts 12 volt, 110 down to 12 volt. We do not have an inverter, so we're not going from 12 volt up to 110. But when we're plugged in to the power, there is a charge controller in this as well. So when we're plugged into 110, that controls the charge to this battery. So converts 110 down to 12 volts. So, and the fuse panel for that is on the inside of the cab up in that little dog cubby. I did add a USB charger up here. This powers, we have lights in our awning up here. This is that maxi-track awning. We've got an LED strip in there, and that powers those, as well as when we're in the tent, we can have our phones charging on the little side table here or something like that. So that's all pretty straightforward. Back here we have the Galley. So we went a whole year without having any cabinets or drawers in this camper. We wanted to really use the camper and see how we used it first before we made any final decisions. So we had kind of dividers in here, and we had some totes that just slid up in there, and that worked okay. But we really wanted a little more organization, and wanted to see how we exactly were going to use, especially this cabinets countertop space. So we initially didn't have any of this shelving in here. We just had this little box up here that had some of our electronics in it. This is the battery. This is our readout for the battery. It tells us what the battery voltage is. It tells us some other information as far as like amperage draw, how much solar power is being put to the battery, things like that. So that's there. And then we have our 110 and our USB plugins here. These USB plugins work off of the battery. Obviously 110 only works when we're plugged into shore power. We don't have an inverter. We only have a converter to go from 110 down to 12. We're not off-grid all that frequently, and if we are, I have a generator that we can use. So we can run off solar power for about 2 or 3 days as well. I've got 2 light switches here. One of those is for an accent light. You can see that purple accent LED up there, and that's color changing. And then our LED lights up here as well. Now, as far as down here, we've got 4 pull-out drawers. This top one is our stove. And this stove was also salvaged from our pop-up camper. This is a 3-burner propane stove. So we managed to save that out of our pop-up camper. We use a quick disconnect for the propane line, and we just store the propane in the truck. I didn't want a bracket hanging off the side. I didn't want any chances of that over time falling off a trailer, getting hit, damaged, whatever. Plus, I like the clean look without the propane bracket on the side. So we're always towing with my truck, and we've got plenty of room for the propane tank. So that was an easy decision for me to do that. We store our quick disconnect fittings for the propane, lighters, matches if we're having a fire, our level, so when we're leveling the trailer out, all in that drawer there. This drawer down here is all of our kitchen appliances and pots and pans and can koozies and mugs and things like that. We do take, the one appliance we do take with us is a little electric kettle. And this is great for making tea, boiling the water for our coffee. We used to do that all on the stove, and it took so much time and was burning quite a bit of propane that we switched to this electric kettle, and it's one of the best things we've added to our camper. We use this for hot water, for washing dishes, anything you want hot water for. It makes hot water pretty darn fast, so that's a nice little feature. Oh, one other thing to note is this cutout in the side of the drawer here, you'll notice, and that's intentional. That's when, in case you forget to get a pot or a pan or something out while you're cooking on the stove, you've got this access panel here, and that allows you access to this while you're cooking if the stove is hot, because if this is up, you cannot slide the stove back in. So that was intentional with the thought of, you know, we don't always think ahead. We don't always get our pots and pans out. So it's a little bit of a pain because it's a shallow drawer, but it is there and it is available, which is nice. This drawer is our water storage drawer, as well as kind of our utility drawer. We've got all of our garbage bags and cleaning supplies and campfire supplies. Right here, a tablecloth. And then our 2 4-gallon, I think these are 4-gallon containers for water. So we carry 8 gallons of water with us when we leave. Again, we don't camp off grid all that frequently, so we often have access to water. We usually only go through about 6 gallons or so in a 3-day weekend. You get much more than that, and we will go through the full 8 gallons. It just depends on how many times we wash dishes and things like that. So you see we were out for 3 days this weekend, and we've used maybe 5.5 gallons. So this one's empty, and we're down about this far on our water. Lastly, over here, this is the fridge pull-out. So it's our little 12-volt fridge. It operates off 12-volt power, so even when we're towing down the road, this is on and it's running, keeping our food cold, which is nice. With the inverter, when we're plugged into shore power, it's running off 110, but it's a 12-volt system. We keep our cutting boards and our dishwashing bins here, and we've got just paper towels and our s'mores sticks there, which is nice. Most often, when we're cooking, our configuration here is to have the stove pulled out and the fridge pulled out as well. This offers 2 things. One, there's a nice little galley. You can stand in here and you can work, you can rotate, and you have surfaces all around you. You've got your stove top, you've got all your workspace, plus if you want, you can have a little storage spaces here as well. but it gives you access to the food, so you can pull things out, put them on your workstation, cut things up, put them on the grill, which is nice. Again, I grain matched all of the drawer faces and the cabinet faces up there. It's a nice little touch, and this is all Baltic birch as well. So my wife really likes the Baltic birch, and if you get in close here, you can see it's just got a beautiful grain pattern on it, and it's really nice. So yeah, and this is all the exposed layers of the Baltic birch here in the construction. This is stuff that I all glued together and made all this cabinetry work from a lot of cutoffs and things, so it works out pretty good. We do in the back here have an integrated tow hitch. This is one of the things I added to the trailer. I cut this in, put a receiver in here. This is for things like our bike rack, and I did mount this in flush, so when you're pinning this, it's a little bit of a pain because when you put the hitch pin in, you have to do it from underneath the camper. But the nice part about this is I didn't want that receiver sticking way out and be banging my knee on it when I'm down here cooking, you know, if I turn and smack my knee on it. So it sits in flush, and it actually sits in behind where the seal is for the trailer, the back of the trailer there. So that's a really nice little touch as well. We went with this kind of retro style Formica on top here. I made all the countertops. I laminated this. We did put this aluminum edge on here just to keep the edge of the cabinet from getting beat up and kind of finish out that edge nicely. We had leftover Formica, so I went ahead and made us this little side table, and this is just a quick detached side table. So we're getting ready to leave here, so I'll just show you how this works. This is just lift up and off the side of the trailer, and there's a little bracket on the trailer there. And we store this little side table right in the back of the camper here. So it's just got the leg that folds, support leg that folds down. And then I just leave it set up here, and that's made out of Baltic birch as well, so you can see how nice the underside of that looks. I've got these two little silicone pot holders, and what I do when we're traveling is this lays on the top of the countertop here, and rather than slide around and have this bracket scratch up the countertop, I throw these little silicone pot holders under there, and those things are so grippy that this doesn't really slide around at all. It kind of stays there nicely, stays put. So I know a lot of people use, you know, they'll take like their storage drawers here and they'll pull these off and make these will be, you know, cutting boards or their side table. That's all well and good. I really like things. I said I wasn't organized inside the camper, but I am kind of a neat freak when it comes to the aesthetics of the camper, and I didn't like the idea of pulling these off and having all this stuff exposed and visible. It's just a weird little quirk of mine, so I like the fact that that's all kind of hidden away. This is our usually like our food, the things that we're going to cook in there, and then this side we usually have like our snacks and things over here. So yeah, that's pretty much it for the galley. And got this nice easy closing hatch here. Let's slide our coffee mug. You have to be a little careful when you close things up. Coffee mug, and that just shuts nicely. Okay, and we do have a Renogy flexible 75 watt solar panel up there. I think it's 75, it might be 100. I'd have to double check on that, but that is a flexible panel, so you can see it contours to the shape of our roof. And don't mind the mess. We are out camping and had a storm come through, so we got quite a bit of leaf debris and everything up there. But this solar panel is usually enough power to keep us charged for usually about 2, maybe 3 days. And as far as wheels and tires, I wanted a more aggressive look on this, so I've got BFG all-terrains on here. These are 235/75 R15s. Now I did bolt pattern match the trailer tires to my truck. While the tires are not the same size, I can use the truck spare on the trailer. They are the same size. If I was in a really bad pinch and I blew two truck tires out, I could jack the trailer up, leave it on the side of the road, and get to safety with the trailer tires, and then come back with after I have my other tires patched. So that was a consideration that I made. In the back, you'll notice I've got these jack mounts. So we just use like a tongue jack style mount that bolts on there. The nice part of, or it goes on there with a pin. The nice part about those is you can actually use them to lift the trailer. They're long reach enough that we can pull this trailer completely up off the ground with the tongue jack and the 2 back jacks. So changing tires, packing bearings, doing those kinds of things is actually pretty handy. I've got a built-in lift system there. And then I did add these steps in. I don't really use mine all that much, but my wife really likes using hers, and she does put her shoes on here at night to keep them up off the ground. So these are just little slide-in footsteps there. Under the trailer, we've got a brand new straight axle under there. I use the Timbren axle suspension. This is a conversion kit. Mostly Timbren's known for their axle-less suspension. Well, this is actually is a straight axle conversion. So you can see my straight axle back there. And then this is a brace in the front. And then the Timbren suspension right up there. This trailer does have trailer brakes on it. It's small, but it does make a difference, especially when you're braking on grade. So lastly, up here is our tongue box. And the tongue box is nothing special. It's just a big storage box for us. Right now it's gonna look pretty empty, but normally we've got our ARB tent as well as our floor mat in here, and that pretty much fills this box with all the things that we use at setup. So all of our wheel chocks, our jacks, propane lines, our electrical connections, tent stakes, hammers, axes, and then these are some leveling blocks here as well. So all that stuff fits in nicely in the front of the trailer in this little tongue box. One of the first things you might notice when you walk up to our camper is this screen room. This is something we added last year. Previously we were using a pop-up tent and a screen net, and that worked okay, but it created a few issues. One being when it's raining and you're trying to get in and out of the camper, as soon as you were getting out of the camper, the side of the bed would get wet, you would be wet. So we added these awnings. These awnings are Maxi Track awnings from Napa Auto Parts. They were pretty cheap. I think they were $1.99. I think I even had a coupon for them for 150 bucks. So keep on the lookout for those because they are a replica of the ARB awning system, which can run in excess of $600. So there's a significant savings in that awning system. They are built a little bit cheaper, but for the most part, they're actually a pretty quality awning. Now, they are built to accept all of the ARB accessories. So this is an ARB screen room. We love it. It's adds so much functional space for us. It allows a space for the dog to sleep during the day, and we don't have to worry about her roaming off into the woods. So come on in. Let's check out the inside. Okay, this is the inside of our tent here, and you can see my head's just barely hitting the top of it. So it is a little bit short. I'm about 5'11" with shoes on. So it is a little short, but for the most part, we just sit in here during the afternoon and we take our naps and we let the dog relax in here. After our hikes, we usually try to hike in the morning and beat the sun and then come back here and relax. Have some snacks, take a nap, read a book, that kind of thing. So it's just a nice little area for us to relax out of the sun and out and away from the bugs. Now we did add one of these beach mats, and that was a very welcomed addition because it actually helps trap sand and dirt underneath the rug, and we don't track all that into the bed when we're getting in and out of the camper. So overall, this is one of our favorite modifications we've done to the camper. It's really a nice place to relax, and it was well worth the extra money. Now, unfortunately, it is Sunday morning, which means it's time for us to break camp. So I'm going to time lapse the breakdown of our awning system and the tent and the flooring. Unfortunately, my wife had to take off a little bit early. She likes to do rally obedience training with the dog, and she had a competition today, so I'm wishing her the best of luck this morning. While I get to have a nice little relaxed morning here and break down camp and head back home. So I'll break the tent down, pull all the camp furniture out, get all that packed away, and then we're gonna hit the road. So that's it for this week. We're all packed up, we're ready to head home. I hope you guys enjoyed this little tour of my camper. I know that my wife and I really enjoy it, and I hope you guys get some enjoyment out of seeing one of my, probably one of my crown jewels as far as builds go. For me, this is really a culmination of all my skills, fabricating, woodwork, and metalwork, all things together. So yeah, so back next week, we'll be back to our regular scheduled programming. We'll be back working on the truck, hopefully getting some of that body work knocked out. So I hope you guys all enjoyed this. You have a great week. And remember, if you don't work on your projects, they won't work on themselves. Get out in the garage, get building. I'll see you on next week's episode of Cody Builds.